Prismatic Evolutions is so fiercely desired that this release has the potential to completely change Pokemon collecting forever. But when no one can get product, where do we go from here? But before I get into this topic, I'm actually thrilled to be gifting this Garchomp special illustration rare from Paradox Rift. Now, if I reply to your comment and I add this lucky Sylveon emoji, then well done, you've won the card. And as always, I always pin the comment once it's been selected. Now, if you are a first-time viewer, firstly, welcome. My name's Phil. I run this Pokemon collecting and investing YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe and hopefully you actually get some value out of the content. Now, I think Prismatic Evolutions may be the biggest failure I've seen from Pokemon in a very long time, right? Like many of you, I'm thrilled to be involved within the hobby. I enjoy collecting. I even enjoy investing in my favorite collectibles. I love sending my cards to get graded, though, you know, the whole lot. I do enjoy the hobby, right? Though some changes need to be made regarding the availability, because if they don't kind of fix this issue quickly, some bigger issues will arise, which I'm going to explain throughout this video, right? I mean, I think the questions we all want answers to is, where do we go from here? Do you or anyone you know want to pay these prices? The problem we really have is the type of person who is actually forking out this kind of money for these collectibles. These are not the kind of collector you want within the hobby. The reason being is it's becoming a very high price market that pushes out the average individual, though it could backfire as well. I think there was a massive oversight that happened with Prismatic Evolutions. I think something really went wrong and I cannot really put my finger on it, right? Was it Pokemon TCG Pocket being way more popular than anticipated? Was there a printing issue? Was there a supply chain issue? I mean, like you, I actually despise checking websites and, you know, scanning for pre-orders, hoping to get some products, and that's exactly what you need to do at the moment. However, there actually is a good tool for this, which brings me to the paid sponsor of today's video, which is PokeNotify. Now, PokeNotify is a paid Discord service that alerts users when restocks happen at specific retailers. When you enter the server, you can select your region, which stores you'd like notifications from, and you'll get alerted the moment a restock happens. Now, PokeNotify covers US, UK, Australia, and many others, and the key to getting the most value out of the server is to ensure you select your regions and notification preferences correctly. Now, obviously, Prismatic Evolutions, Pokemon 151, and Journey together are incredibly hard to find. Now, if you want to test it out, there is a 3-day free trial, and if you sign up using my code, you do get 25% off the first month. The link for PokeNotify is in the description of this video. Now, as much as I love Pokemon cards, right, and I love collecting, I'm kind of feeling we're at a little bit of a crossroad where we may get a lot of people leaving the hobby. I mean, I create content relating to Pokemon, but I need to admit I'm kind of getting exhausted with the situation because I see a lot of comments, right? I see a lot of people complaining, yeah? And for me, it's like, wow, okay, sure. And then people say, hey, Phil, you're a little bit of a part of the problem because you're talking about this online. And I do admit that, okay? I do actually acknowledge that my content that I'm building does have an effect on the market. Is my content contributing to a lot? Probably it does, right? And it does no, you know what? Not probably, it definitely does. But it's not just my content. It's when we all kind of have and we're all talking about this together. We're hyping sets together. We do create a lot of demand for these sets. So I do also want to say, you know, it is important when you're in these kind of eras and when you're kind of looking at this, it's okay as long as you're okay with not thinking that these products are going to rise indefinitely. I think one of the issues is if you're just buying these products thinking they're going to go to the moon, you know, reprints can tank markets, man. I think people don't speak about this a lot, right? When Japanese 151 came out, that was selling for like 180 USD a box. You know, was there going to be a reprint? No. And guess what? When the reprint happened, dropped to 50 USD a box. Reprints can really, really challenge the market. They can make singles go down. So this is why it's important to keep things level-headed when you're dealing with these things, right? Now, here's the thing as well. I actually don't think it's that much of a problem if pull rates are difficult, right? The problem with Prismatic Evolutions is the stock availability, and especially when it's on release. I mean, check this out, man. Look at some of this stuff that we're dealing with at the moment. So as I was saying, look at what's going on. Now, let's get real. Here I'm on Prismatic Evolutions ETBs. This is just US eBay. You can see one selling for 134 USD, one selling for 129. I'm not, like the Pokemon Center version retails for like 60 USD. So this is just standard ETB selling for this. More than double, and that's for standard ETBs, not Pokemon Center. Obviously, it's expensive. Obviously, it's hard. You know, what I think is more challenging about this as well is that it's not... Pull rates are always going to be a tough situation. Now, difficult pull rates have actually proven to make a set more valuable in the long term. When we look at Fusion Strike, when we look at Evolving Skies, when we look at Chillin' Rain, all these sets have very, very hard pull rates. And then when you look at something like Crown Zenith, I mean, Crown Zenith has been lagging behind for such a long time. What does Crown Zenith have? Incredibly easy pull rates. So sometimes difficult pull rates don't actually mean a set that's sealed is going to be, less expensive, which is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because you would think that difficult pull rates would actually make the sealed product be worth less because there's less chance of you pulling some of the fire inside the set, right? But it actually does the opposite. So, Evolving Skies, if you buy a booster box, chance for you to pull a Moonbryon is very unlikely. I mean, a Moonbryon is like in 1 in 1,600 to like 1 in 1,700 packs. So it's very kind of weird how it works because, like I said, man, Crown Zenith really, more people should love to buy the sealed product because it's very likely that you'll pull some, really cool cards from the set. But, things work in very, very strange ways with this hobby, right? Now, also, just a little quick heads up, I actually am hosting a live break where you can purchase some packs to be open on stream. The last live stream was actually a heap of fun and it was super exciting to rip some packs with all of you watching, and we did manage to pull some fire on stream. So the next live stream will be held on February 6th, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you'd like to purchase some packs for the stream, the link to do so is in the description of this video. So obviously we can see the price of Prismatic Evolutions ETBs. Now, the reason why I think this is a bit of a failure on, Pokemon and just collecting as a whole, right, is because not having products available on release is such a problem for so many reasons. It's not just for new collectors. It's not even for investors. It doesn't matter. It affects everyone on the same level because I'm always been very, very open about one thing. I believe everyone should be able to get product on release. To me, it's all about capturing a time period, right? Whether you're collecting in the Sun and Moon era, whether you're collecting in Sword and Shield, whether you're collecting now in Scarlet and Violet, whether you collected, back in 2003, whenever you collected cards, it's important that everyone kind of understands that era and becomes part of it, right? Because once the era ends, that's when the memories and the nostalgia kind of continues. And what's happening now is kind of the reverse. It's kind of like a reverse pyramid that's happening. All the hype is kind of now at the top of the pyramid. And maybe, if it continues, maybe if a lot of these people drop off, maybe that hype is going to siphon through and it's not going to be that interesting in a few years. Maybe we're actually having the reverse. We are in a different period of life right now, guys. Everything is, we're in this brain rot era, right? Everyone wants everything now. Maybe we're not going to see in the future. This is just, I'm just talking more, this is more philosophy, existential kind of discussion, right? This isn't predictions or anything. But maybe with this new era and how the perception of things change and how we want everything now, maybe the hype is all concentrated at the start, right? And maybe as time goes on, people will forget about this and they won't become that interested. Maybe it's only going to be relevant for now. Because vintage, it took so many years for it to become what it was. And now vintage has these prices and now it has that kind of where the prices went crazily high in value, right? But maybe it's the reverse now. Maybe all the hype is just concentrated at the start. And then as the years go on, a lot of people drop off. That could happen. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking about how weird the hobby and how much of a different direction it's going, right? But, I spoke about it in a previous video, right? Like Charizard VMAX, right? The Hyper Rare from Rainbow Rare one, right? That was like the most hyped card of 2020, right? Now look at it. I mean, that card was selling for like 1.8K USD in PSA 10. It sold in December for as low as $216. So we do have these price drops that can happen. It depends also when sentiment changes, okay? Because this is the thing. Right now, Prismatic Evolutions is hot, but things can change so quickly, man. But I do think Pokemon is in such an interesting position as a franchise. Because, I collect a lot of TCGs, right? And a lot of TCGs, they try to do such crazy things to stay relevant, right? I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! All they're doing is this quarter century bonanza and this quarter century 25th anniversary sets, and they're pumping again the Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon in 2023. They did that, and then they printed all of their classic kind of sets from 2002, and then they're releasing all these cards with quarter century rares, and I don't even know what they're called anymore. It's gotten so complicated. They've just added all these new rarities in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they're just pumping it out so much, right? And you can get every card card in a completely different rarity. There's like a collector rare. There's all this kind of new rarities, right? And you can see how much Yu-Gi-Oh is struggling to kind of get their foot back in the market. They're just trying to wedge themselves back in, right? Then you got Dragon Ball with Fusion World, where they're trying so hard, but Fusion World is now selling for like 60 or 70 USD a box. It's completely dropped in value, and they're releasing more, but less and less people are going into the TCG, and they're really struggling to make any kind of, noise within their community. And then you got One Piece, which is actually doing quite well, right? But can One Piece, maintain it for such a long time like Pokemon? Then you find Pokemon, right? And Pokemon, all they need to do is create a new set and people just flock there. It's such a weird kind of hobby to be involved in because, you've got all these others who are going, they're putting their foot so heavy on the accelerator to try stay relevant and to try make the noise. But it's incredible what they've created as a TCG, and it's incredible on how much buy-in they've got from so many different audiences, right? Because people come to Pokemon from so many different audiences, man. Like, don't think it's people that just love Pokemon that collect. Sports collectors come in as well, man. They get interested with what's happening. Don't forget as well, because Pokemon is such a strong and stable franchise as well, it also does make for interesting things to happen. But the reason why this Prismatic Evolution situation is so hard, and I think it's going to become harder and harder for a lot of people, is because Pokemon appeals to such a broad range of people, right? And especially because they appeal to kids and younger generations, they do need to make sure that they market their TCG in a way and also distribute products in a way that everyone has access. Because when we look at sports collecting, right, sports cards can probably get away with being a little bit more opportunistic with their market, okay? When we look at Yu-Gi-Oh as well, Yu-Gi-Oh can definitely be a little bit more transactional and opportunistic with their audience because they're much older fans, and that's when they released that, only 3,000 in the world or whatever it was, the Platinum Blue Eyes White Dragon, and they can definitely do things more like that because the audience is older. With Pokemon, they have to actually tread the line very carefully because they aren't just dealing with these hype beasts that we have and these new people that are really bullish with Pokemon cards, but you've also got a lot of kids that just love ripping packs. So they are on this very, very strange kind of line. And Pokemon struggle with this a lot, man. It's not just in the TCG, the games as well. So when they released Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, a lot of fans were complaining, hey, you've got this audience that's kind of more mature now and you're releasing a game that's really targeted to like 4, 5, 6-year-olds. And we're kind of having a really tough time because we kind of want to play the Pokemon game, but it's kind of catered so much towards younger generations. And even with Pokemon Sword and Shield, they weren't too happy with that either because it's like, yeah, it's still so, heavily marketed towards kids. And then Pokemon said, you know what? And they released Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was a bit more of a mature themed Pokemon game, a little bit of darker topics as well. It was a bit more interesting. And then they kind of had to nurture that market. They're constantly needing to find their balance. And I think Pokemon actually hasn't found that balance as well as other franchises. When we look at Mario or Zelda, I feel they've actually really found a good way to mix the younger generations and the older generations. When I think of Mario, right, there's no kid's going to be complaining about playing a Mario game and no adult's going to be complaining either. Everyone just loves playing them, right? Same with Zelda. Zelda's got that thing where it appeals to mature audiences as well, but it also appeals to, kids can play Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom and enjoy it just as much. I think Pokemon is finding their feet with how do we cater these cards to older audiences and people who actually have money and people who are bullish because, obviously that's where the money lies. But also, how do we make sure this is accessible to younger generations and kids and parents can buy it for Christmas? So right now, Pokemon's in this weird thing. And because you got these hype beasts entering, which, are really bullish, they'll buy out stores and all this. And you got these, people that are just very casual. Then you got the TCG players. Now, I know it's not nice to say, but I think the TCG players don't actually get as affected from this as collectors do. Reason being is, if you know how the TCG works, you do get different rarities and different tiers of rarity. So for example, with Iron Crown, you have the special illustration rare, which is the highest rarity. Then you have a bit of a lower rarity version, and then you have a common or just not even a version that would cost most collectors $2 or $3 if they wanted to add that to their decks, right? So you do get access to product. The problem is if you actually kind of want to bling out your deck and look awesome, and you go to those things and you can have your chest out and be like, yeah man, I got an Iron Crown special illustration rare, and you throw your card. I mean, those Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments where they pull their card out and they throw it down and they go like, it's time to. The point I'm trying to make is that Pokemon is in this weird position, and I do think Prismatic Evolutions was quite a failure. I think they should have anticipated far better what was going to happen. When we look at Evolving Skies, I think Pokemon knew how much demand evolutions were. And I kind of think in hindsight, right, it's actually kind of incredible that Pokemon 151 wasn't sold out on release. When I'm looking at Prismatic Evolutions, I actually have no idea how Pokemon 151 managed to escape this. Like, Pokemon 151, you could get it so easily, man. It was one of the easiest sets to get. I never struggled getting any 151 for such a long time. And now, obviously, it's very hard to get. But I'm actually really interested how Pokemon 151 managed to escape a lot of this. It was actually a really interesting period. Though, things for this hobby are shifting quite quickly. And I think Prismatic Evolutions is going to be a good change that happens. And I think when more product comes out, when more people can access it, and if Pokemon do stick to their word and they actually release far more product and they go as heavy as they said that they were going to be, and for my sake, I really hope this set stays, easy and available. I hope it's like a Shining Fates scenario where it's like, even right now, Shining Fates isn't that expensive. I really, really hope that happens for this set. Now, with these prices, obviously they're becoming quite high, and a lot of people are wondering, where do they go from here? However, I think a lot more questions come up relating to this topic, and I think most collectors are in complete and unanimous agreement that the Pokemon market needs to crash. And I explain why that's so important for the longevity of this hobby right here. Within this video on screen, I look over the current Pokemon market and explain in detail why it's so important that a market correction happens. Click the video that's appearing on screen and we'll talk more about it.